by a bent line, by a straight line, by a crooked line. The Crooked Path, a podcast for modern cunning folk with Peter Padden. Hello, good evening and welcome. This is The Crooked Path and I'm Peter Padden. Now here's some news. And first of all, I'd like to apologise for the strange opening. Just for some reason I suddenly found myself aspecting David Frost, who you may remember as the guy who interviewed President Nixon about the Watergate incident, and he was a prolific talk show host in Britain, and he always started his show with "Hello, good evening and welcome," and for some reason or other he was on my mind tonight, so that's how I opened, so sorry about that, but there you go. Not much in the way of news tonight. Essentially, I think we've done all the gallivanting about we're going to be doing for the foreseeable future, unless somebody offers me huge sums of money to go and do something exciting somewhere, which is always a possibility. Unlikely, but it's always a possibility. We had a really good time with Inland Empire Pagan Pride. I would like to give a shout out to the organisers and thank them very much for their hospitality, and all the cool people who came to our booth and bought Linda's little clay miniatures and my glass stuff, and came to my workshop and bought books and generally made it a fun day. And it wasn't completely horrendously hot, and then we had a wonderful weekend in the mountains with Raven and Johnny, so cool. And I have to tell you, we're in the process of getting Raven set up so finally she can rejoin the podcast, and it will happen because now our granddaughter is on a case to get the camera and stuff set up, so watch this space. The only other real news is that probably for the next couple of weeks, probably through to the end of October, I'm going to be taking a break because we're coming to the end of the classes for the training coven, and I basically need to collapse in a puddle somewhere. And so for the next 3 or 4 weeks there probably won't be a Crooked Path, so just to give you a heads up on that. And with that, let's get on with what I'm discussing tonight, which is all kinds of little bits and pieces. First of all, I just want to add another thing from last week's podcast, and that is to anybody who thinks that it's okay to force somebody else to do what you want them to do by threatening them. It's not okay. That's called bullying, and you are being an arse. And if you find yourself creating a fake identity on Facebook in order to do that, that should be your first clue that what you're doing is unethical, wrong, and you are a dick. So, you know, have a little bit of sense. It amazes me that people who profess to be Wiccan and follow the Wiccan Rede, where it says do no harm, will do these horrible, invasive, hypocritical things and think it's perfectly okay because if it works they get what they want. So, you know, this is going to be my last word on the thing. You don't know what goes on behind the scenes. People do not have to protest and denounce people in public to have an input or an impact on that person. So don't make assumptions, don't threaten and bully, don't be a dick, and life will be a lot better for all of us. Just wanted to get that out. So the thing that's on my mind tonight mostly is that, as I said in the news section, I'm coming to the end of the training course, the Training Coven course. This is the second year in a row that we have had students from all over the world and locally training with us for a year and a day, and they've both gone spectacularly well. And so I thought I'd ramble on a little bit in my own inane, strange British way about technology and magic, because it's often something that people try to avoid mixing for various reasons. I mean, I remember my Alexandrian coven back in England, before I discovered traditional witchcraft, we used to occasionally try and use electronics in ritual. Play a recording of a path working, or try and record what we were doing, and every time things would go wrong. I remember setting up a camera to take still photographs, and it's sitting there on its tripod in the corner so that people could walk by and click it occasionally and take pictures so we could see how we looked doing ritual. Well, we had to scotch that idea because the camera suddenly the flash just started going off. Flash, 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 flash. And so we had to basically throw it out of the temple. And so I was always in the don't mix electronics with magical work camp for many years. And of course, being a big fan of the Dresden Files, Harry Dresden, the wizard and private investigator in Chicago, 6'6" guy squeezing himself into a VW Bug because it's the only vehicle he can find that's primitive enough that he doesn't upset the electrics off. Can't have a computer, can't have a phone, unless it's one of the old rotary phones and so on and so forth. And so there's this perpetuated myth that magic and technology don't coexist well. Well, despite that, we ended up live streaming our classes, and for the most part it's worked pretty well, I think. We've had a couple of classes that were disrupted by technical glitches, but for the most part they were problems with our internet provider, Time Warner, or it was a problem that YouTube had. They've occasionally had problems with their streaming servers that has impacted us, but for the most part we've had a really good run. Some of our students have had problems because they have crappy internet. There's not a lot we can do about that, but we always provide the recordings of the classes afterwards, so if they can't get it to stream properly live, they can at least download and watch the video afterwards. So it's worked really well. And one of the things we've discovered is that when you stop being afraid of technology, it can actually facilitate way more than you thought it could. One of the things we've discovered in the last 2 years is that when we do practical work here in the Covenstead, the students who are joining us live can feel the energy of it and they can interact with it. And then we discovered that the students who were then watching the recording, because they couldn't be there live because where they lived in the UK it was 3 o'clock in the morning and they had to stay asleep so they could get up and go to work later. The following day they'd watch the recording and they would say that they too felt the energy and they too were able to interact with it. And we've gone further than that. We've done our Sabbats live streamed as well for our long distance students and various other rituals, and we found the same thing happen. We found that when you're engaged and connected to the process, that the energy does cross that technology barrier. It's not as strong, but it's definitely there. I mean, we've had a couple of students come over from England to be initiated with us, and so they've actually been able to attend a class live here, and they said it's definitely different, but it does work. And that's really cool. And we've even had student rituals where the student doing the ritual is in England, or is in Tennessee, or Florida, or somewhere else. And we've managed to do a ritual with the camera being the interface between 2 sacred spaces. And it's worked beautifully with very, very positive practical results. One of our students in England did a crafting to call on the ancestors to help prevent a pub that had closed down from being torn down and used to build a housing estate that would have caused all kinds of traffic and parking problems for the houses that already existed in the village. And that was wildly successful, to the point that the pub may actually reopen now, which is an even better win from my perspective. Apparently they had really good cider. But that's a minor detail. The important thing is, I think, if you're afraid of technology, technology will bite you. If you're not afraid of it, it will sometimes throw a loop in the proceedings, but on the whole it's generally pretty useful and you shouldn't be afraid of it. and I've come to really rely on it. I've even taught workshops. I taught a workshop a month or so ago in a pub in just to the north of London, in England, sitting at my desk here in my house in Los Angeles, and I had a blast doing it. And now I'm teaching my year-long courses. I just started the Visceral Magic course on Sunday, which was well attended and went very well, very happy with it. Looking forward to seeing what happens when we unleash visceral magic on the world in larger quantities. And this Sunday I'll be starting the enchantment course, and then the following Sunday it'll be the walking the wheel course. So I am absolutely sold on this. In fact, I put in a proposal for PantheaCon next year to teach a class on using technology in teaching the craft, which I'm hoping they'll accept, because I know various people are really keen on attending it, and I think it would be very useful. There's no reason why we shouldn't embrace the technology. Technology is another form of magic as far as I'm concerned, and all it takes is to stop being afraid of it. I remember a couple of years ago when I was working for Disney, my boss asked me to teach a class for the other people in the department, because we got one of the really nice Panasonic video cameras, the prosumer ones that a lot of people were using for documentaries at the time, to encourage people in the department to do creative projects. And so he asked me to teach a class on how to use the video camera, because a lot of people, yes, especially a big expensive camera like the Panasonic that we had, which I'm trying to remember what the model number was, A100 or something like that. Really nice camera, but it's got a lot of buttons on it. It's got a lot of things, and it looks scary because you can't pick it up. There's buttons on every surface. There's this huge lens with the dial, with the twisty bits on it, and all kinds of other stuff. And people would not want to pick it up because they were afraid of it, and I pointed out to them, it's basically a tube. The only difference between a video camera and a telescope is that the telescope doesn't record what you see. You can pick up the camera, switch it on, look through the eyepiece, hit the record button and record something. You don't have to touch anything else. It defaults to autofocus and auto exposure and auto white balance, so you don't have to do anything to it. You don't have to touch those buttons or use them in any way until you've had a chance to figure out what they're for. So don't be afraid of technology. Pick it up, press the power button and use it, and then figure out what it can do afterwards. It's a lot more fun that way. I mean, I've got so many techie toys knocking around the house. It's amazing my wife hasn't kicked me out and sold them all, because she could have gone on a world cruise with the proceeds of selling all my toys. Oh, now I've given her ideas. Silly boy. But technology is a tool. Technology is of the gods as well. The minerals that are used to create the circuit boards were mined out of the earth. You can see Tubal-Cain or Hephaestus or Vulcan being involved in that process. The imagination of the people who invented and created the circuitry, the programs, the processes that make the technology work. Where did that come from?
Tracks on the air.
Yeah, from the ancestors, from the gods. There's no reason why we should treat it with suspicion or fear. It's just like last week I was ranting about people who suddenly become anti-medicine. Because they're pagan, they feel like they have to use essential oils, honey and yak's crap to heal everything. They suddenly become anti-vaxxers, they become anti-orthodox medicine. You know, there's some things that modern medicine isn't good about, as I said, but there's a lot of stuff it's really good at, and you should work with the appropriate thing. Setting a bone is a lot easier if you have modern technology. They actually use 3D printers to print a cast that fits you perfectly and allows water to get in, and you can scratch. No more sticking your mother's knitting needle down the inside of a plaster cast. That's great, that's technology. And there's a place for it, even amongst us crazy magic folk. 99 times out of 100, people store their Book of Shadows these days on their hard drive. People in my class, I very rarely see people with a pen and paper. They're usually tapping away on their iPad or on their cell phone, making notes. A lot of them don't even make notes in class because they sort of sit here and absorb the class, and then they go home and watch the video and make notes while they're watching the video because they can pause it so they don't miss anything. Technology is a great thing. It's a great tool. You can incorporate it into spellcasting. I haven't done a lot of that so far, but that doesn't mean I won't. But it's you know, the fact that I can sit here and you can see my ugly mug while I'm talking to you is a miracle of modern technology. Not so long ago, this would have been thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars worth of equipment to enable us to do this. I'm speaking to you, I'm looking at a camera that costs $200, sitting on a $100 tripod. Okay, it's plugged into a fancy $2,000 mixer, but even so, by the standards of what used to be, $2,000 for a video mixer is peanuts. Mm-hmm. And my computer, my laptop, sees that mixer as a webcam. If I didn't want the multi-camera setup, I could be doing this using the webcam that's built into the laptop. It's a fraction of the cost of what it used to be, and the technology is amazing. These are high-def cameras. You're not benefiting from that because it's easier to transmit standard def, so that's what I'm doing. But these are high-def cameras. I could film a documentary or a movie on these cameras, and one day I might. It's incredible. I mean, I'll confess, I am biased. I have always loved technology. I've always loved tinkering with toys. I've always loved science fiction. I tell you, I don't know how I survived without a cell phone. Well, I think I know how I survived without a cell phone. I don't know how I survived without a smartphone. Mm. I mean,
we all did that.
Yeah, browsing the web, getting on Facebook, texting people, getting directions to places, looking for somewhere to eat when you're in a strange town. It's incredible. I mean, I look back to when I was a kid, and if you wanted to call home when you were away from home, you had to find a phone box, and you had to have money to put into the phone box. And yeah, I remember at a very young age, like 5, 6 years old, going out and being out and about all day. Okay, I lived in a tiny village. It wasn't, you know, like I was in the middle of London or anything like that. But I lived in a little village, and I'd ride my bike all around the countryside. I should point out that my tiny village was attached to a large military garrison, and the countryside I was riding around on was the Salisbury Plain, which was largely artillery firing ranges. I remember my brother and I, when I was about 7 years old, playing in an old abandoned Scorpion tank, which we thought had been put there just for our pleasure. It was a target. Luckily, I'd learned at a very early age to keep an eye out for the red flags. So, yeah, when the red flags were flying, I didn't go anywhere near the ranges. But we were playing in what was essentially going to be blown up the next day, and having a rare old time of it. And not a phone box inside. I mean, you know, I would leave the house at 8 o'clock in the morning, come home as it got dark, 9, 10 o'clock at night during the summer vacation, and my mother wouldn't have seen me all day. And this is before, you know, pre-teen, and nobody ever thought anything of it. When I was 7 years old, I rode my bicycle the 17 miles to Salisbury and back. I got picked up on the edge of the village by the military police because I didn't have any lights on my bicycle, and it was 10:30 at night. And I was very pleased that they picked me up because I was kind of pooped by then. My little 7-year-old legs had done rather too much pedalling for their own good that particular day. But, you know, these days, I would have been on the 11 o'clock news. Well, I wouldn't because they'd have found me at 10:30. I would have been on the 9 o'clock news. Missing boy, helicopters, and, you know, all sorts. Except it would never have happened because I would have got a phone call on my smartphone from my mum saying, "Where the bloody hell are you?"
Yeah.
so much in our lives has changed, and we're trying to keep alive old traditions, but that doesn't mean we can't incorporate new things into them as well. We've already done that. We don't sacrifice Christians, much as we are tempted sometimes. We don't generally make animal sacrifices, most pagan traditions anymore. Not the neo-pagan tradition. Some of the indigenous traditions still do, some of the African traditions still do. And you know, for those who get up in arms about that, I really don't have a problem with it. Those animals are very well treated and they're dispatched very humanely. Much more humanely than anything that we buy in the supermarket to eat, I can tell you. So I really, you know, love me or hate me for that, I don't have a problem with it. But we have changed. Everything we do is adapted for modern life. Because if we did it exactly the way the ancestors did, chances are it wouldn't work, because we're not the same people they are. Everything has to evolve and grow. And, you know, the technology is here, let's just use it.
If they were here, they would probably be using it too.
Yeah, what was it the old saying they say in the SCA, if the Celts had access to spandex, they'd have worn it. And gold lame, or lame, or however you pronounce it over here. Because they were vain and they liked pretty things. So, you know, embrace being a 21st century crafter is what I'm basically saying. I keep looking around expecting to see more people doing this. I mean, I know there's a lot of people on Blog Talk Radio now. They do their podcasts on Blog Talk Radio, so they're live and they have phone-ins. I tried it, the quality was crap, so I stopped. I like having a consistent quality, which I wasn't getting from them. It may have improved by now. But even so, on Blog Talk Radio you can do video, but very few people are. They're still doing just audio. Why am I doing video? Because I can. And okay, 9 times out of 10 when I'm just sitting here blabbing, you get to look at my ugly face and maybe I wave my hands around a little bit. And it's not very exciting, but occasionally when I do something practical and I want to do a demonstration, or down the line when I actually have guests being interviewed, you'll be able to see them and feel you're in the room with them. That's the idea. Doing my classes, I've been teaching live streaming video classes for 2 years now. I thought by now at least somebody else would be doing the same thing, and nobody is. I've noticed more people doing online covens with you know, doing online training, but the online training tends to be pre-recorded MP3s of classes and send you your homework by email. It's like, okay, I like that I'm on the leading edge of technology, but I thought somebody else would have followed me into the madness by now, and so far they haven't.
Mention the fact that when you're streaming a class online, that students watching you virtually have the ability to type questions in and have them relay to you.
Well, I don't need to now, because you just said that. Yes, as Christopher just pointed out, both with the podcast and with my training coven, with the classes, if you're participating live, if you're watching the podcast or you're watching the class live, there's a chat function on the YouTube page, which means that you can type in questions and comments, share your experiences. You can be interactive, which makes it a lot more fun, especially when people are getting witty and silly, just like me. So really what tonight's little drivel is about is just not being so stuck in the past that you ignore the tools that are available to you. Merlin would have had live streaming video if it had been available in his day. How can magic be technology that we haven't discovered the rules for yet, or science that we haven't discovered the rules for yet, if it isn't up to date with the science and the technology that we do have the rules for? It's a bit like saying, yeah, I'm better at weapons than you are because I use a sword. Well, you know, a sword is a beautiful thing, and in skilled hands it is a work of art. But a Glock 19 will take out the bad guy from a distance faster, quicker and more efficiently. And in this modern day and age, I think that if you want to be a skilled weapons person, you need to know both. Don't just stick to the old, stick to the, use what's current as well. But then that's just me, and you all know I'm crazy, so you probably all think, oh, it's just Peter. Oh, Peter, there he goes again. But yeah. So as I said at the beginning, there's going to be a break of a couple of weeks, just so I can catch my breath and actually spend some quality time with the missus, so that she doesn't disown me. And then probably at the end of the month, the podcast will be back again, and hopefully we'll have got Raven sorted out, so she will be able to do a nice little Herbie piece every week as well, which will be really cool, because I liked bantering with Raven, and I'm going to try and organise actually having some guests in as well to annoy you with, or entertain you with, or do both simultaneously. And that's that really. So thanks a lot for joining me again. Enjoy the break. If you're jonesing for something good to listen to while I'm taking my little break for a couple of weeks, if you like good music, there's always Grey Wolf. I can't remember his podcast now. Pagan something in Maine. But anyway, he plays some good music. Mojo and Sparrow, Wiggly and Way, do some good music as well. And of course Corey and damn it, I'm just forgetting the name of everybody's podcast. But Corey with his, was it New England Witchery or New American Witchery? Anyway, I'll post a link to their podcast because my brain has gone fritzy. It's all the electronics around me that's affecting my mind. But there's some really good people out there that you can listen to as well. Not as many as there used to be. Pagan podcasts seem to be on the decline for some reason. Still trying to figure that one out. There's a lot of new agey stuff on Blog Talk Radio, but the witchy stuff people seem to be giving up on it. I'm not going to give up on it because it's like a disease with me, but you probably figure that one out. Anyway, thank you all for listening, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care now.
By a bent line, by a straight line, by a crooked line. The Crooked Path, a podcast for modern cunning folk with Peter Panham.